Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of our podcast, AI ShowDown. Here today, we dive into a topic that sparks heated debates around the world, the impact of social media. In this episode, our two AIs will analyze and discuss the subject from their unique perspectives. Let the showdown begin.
Hey everyone, and welcome to a deep dive into the world of social media.
Oh yeah, this is a big one.
It really is. I mean, it feels like everywhere you turn, social media is there. It's in the headlines, it's in our homes, It's even, changing how we relate to each other.
And it's global too, right? It's not just like a local thing anymore. This is something that people around the world are grappling with.
Exactly. So how do we even begin to unpack something this massive? Well, we're going to try by looking at it from a few different angles. We've got some new data from the Pew Research Center, which is always fascinating. We'll be digging into a really insightful article from the American Psychological Association about the science behind how social media affects young people.
Which is so important because they're the ones growing up with this technology, shaping it and being shaped by it.
Absolutely. And because we want to look at the big picture, we'll also be pulling in some insights from the National Institutes of Health about the broader health implications of all of this.
Sounds like we've got our work cut out for us.
We do, but that's what these deep dives are all about.
Yeah.
So let's jump right in. The Pew Research Center recently did this massive study where they surveyed people from 27 countries all around the globe.
27 countries. Wow, that's impressive.
It's huge. And they were asking about the impact of social media on something pretty fundamental: democracy.
Now that's an interesting combination, social media and democracy. With all the talk these days about misinformation, echo chambers, political polarization, you'd think the results would be pretty bleak, right?
You'd think so, right?
Yeah.
But here's where things get interesting. The study actually found that in 20 of those 27 countries, a majority of people said they believe social media has actually benefited democracy in their country.
Wow, really? That's not what I would have expected. So in the majority of the countries surveyed, people are actually seeing a positive impact on democracy from social media. That's fascinating. Where were these countries? Were there any patterns there?
That's the really interesting part. It wasn't just one region or type of country. You saw this trend in places like Nigeria, Mexico, Indonesia. Even in countries with very different political systems and levels of economic development, there was this sense that social media was giving people a voice, a platform to be heard.
That makes sense. In a lot of places, social media might be the first time people have had access to a public forum like that. It's a way to bypass traditional media or even government censorship.
Exactly. And the study found that this was especially true in countries with a history of conflict or where trust in traditional institutions is low.
So in those contexts, social media can be a powerful tool for holding those in power accountable, for organizing protests, for demanding change.
It's like that old saying, the medium is the message. But in this case, it's almost like the medium is changing the message itself, at least how it's perceived.
It makes you wonder, though, why there's such a different conversation happening in other parts of the world, like here in the US.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Because the Pew study found that only about a third of Americans believe social media has been good for democracy. And in some European countries, the sentiment was even more negative.
So what's going on there? Is it just that we're more cynical? Or is there something else at play?
Well, it's probably a combination of factors, right? I mean, each country has its own unique relationship with social media, its own political climate, its own level of digital literacy.
And we can't forget about the role of the media itself, right? How social media is portrayed in the news and in popular culture can definitely shape how people perceive it.
For sure. It's like we always say, context is key. You can't just look at social media as this monolithic thing. You have to consider the specific historical, cultural, and political circumstances in which it's being used.
Absolutely. And one of the most important factors to consider is age, because the way young people are experiencing and shaping social media is fundamentally different from how older generations are using it.
It's like we're talking about two different worlds sometimes.
Right. Yeah, you've got the way adults tend to use social media, and then you've got how young people are using it, and it can feel like two completely different planets.
Right. And that's where I think this APA article is so valuable, because it goes beyond just the anecdotes or the think pieces and actually digs into the science behind how social media interacts with those young developing minds.
Yeah, and that's crucial because adolescence is already this time of massive change and upheaval, right? Even without social media, you've got all these hormonal shifts, these social pressures, this intense focus on identity formation.
It's like your brain is a construction zone.
Exactly. And then you throw social media into the mix with all of its instant gratification and social comparison and curated perfection, and it's no wonder that researchers are concerned about the potential impact.
So what is it about the adolescent brain that makes it particularly susceptible to the allure and, let's be honest, the potential pitfalls of social media?
Well, one key factor is this thing called hypersensitivity to social feedback, which basically means that teenagers' brains are wired to care a lot about what their peers think.
Okay, yeah, that tracks with my lived experience for sure.
Right, and it's not just some abstract teenage angst, it's actually rooted in neurobiology. During adolescence, the parts of the brain that process social information and rewards, like the amygdala and the ventral striatum, are going through this period of intense development.
So they're like extra sensitive to anything that makes them feel accepted or rejected, connected or excluded.
Exactly, and social media just amplifies all of that. It's like this giant feedback loop where every comment, every follower count is feeding into this primal need for social validation.
And that can be really tough to navigate, even for adults who supposedly have more developed prefrontal cortices. You know, the part of the brain that's supposed to help us make rational decisions and control our impulses.
Right, and the thing is with teenagers, those impulse control centers are still under construction. So they're literally wired to be more impulsive, more driven by immediate rewards, less able to think about the long-term consequences of their actions.
Which is kind of terrifying when you think about it, because social media is designed to be addictive, right? It's all about those little dopamine hits, those notifications that keep you coming back for more.
Absolutely. The infinite scroll, the push notifications, the constant stream of content, it's all engineered to keep you hooked. And for a developing brain that's already primed for that kind of reward-seeking behavior, it can be incredibly difficult to resist.
So we've got this perfect storm brewing, right? You've got these adolescent brains that are already wired to be extra sensitive to social feedback and driven by instant gratification. And then you drop them into this online world that's specifically designed to exploit those vulnerabilities.
It's a recipe for trouble, for sure. And that's why I think it's so important to be having these conversations about how to mitigate the risks while still allowing young people to benefit from the positive aspects of social media.
Because there are positive aspects, right? We don't want to just demonize the whole thing.
Absolutely. Social media can be an incredible tool for connection, for creativity, for finding your tribe, especially for kids who might be struggling with social anxiety or who feel like they don't quite fit in offline.
Right? It can be a lifeline for some kids. But the key is finding that balance between harnessing the good and mitigating the bad. And that's where things get really tricky. It feels like it's kind of a tightrope walk, right? You've got all this potential, but also all this risk.
Totally. And the stakes are high because we're talking about the social and emotional development of an entire generation.
No pressure, right?
Right. But seriously, this is where I think the APA article makes a really important point about the need for a multi-pronged approach. It's not just about putting the onus on parents to police their kids' screen time or on kids to just be more responsible online.
It's got to be bigger than that, right? Like a systemic kind of change.
Exactly. It's about changing the way social media platforms are designed in the first place. Like, what if instead of these addictive interfaces that keep you scrolling endlessly, these platforms were actually designed to promote digital well-being?
Okay, so you're talking about things like age-appropriate design, like they were talking about in the article.
Exactly. Imagine if platforms had built-in mechanisms to prevent excessive use or to flag potentially harmful content or to actually teach kids about digital literacy skills directly within the app.
So it's like instead of just throwing kids into the deep end of the pool, we're giving them some floaties and some swimming lessons.
Exactly. And it's not just on the tech companies either. Parents, educators, policymakers, we all have a role to play in creating a digital environment that's safer and healthier for young people.
And one that emphasizes those core values of empathy, critical thinking, and responsible online citizenship.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Now, speaking of the bigger picture, I want to circle back to something we touched on earlier about the broader health implications of social media. The NIH website had some interesting insights on this as well.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, we've been talking a lot about the mental and emotional impacts, but there are also potential physical health consequences to consider too, right? Things like sleep disruption, eye strain, sedentary behavior.
Exactly. And the NIH actually highlighted how social media use can affect sleep, which is something I think a lot of people can relate to.
Oh, totally. Who hasn't been kept up way too late scrolling through their phone, right?
Right. And those blue light emissions from our devices can actually interfere with our melatonin production, which makes it harder to fall asleep and stay asleep.
And it's not just the sleep deprivation. There's also research suggesting a link between heavy social media use and an increased risk of anxiety, depression, body image issues, even cyberbullying.
It's like this whole other layer of complexity on top of everything else we've been talking about.
It really highlights how interconnected all of these issues are. Physical health, mental health, social well-being, they're all intertwined, and social media has the potential to impact every single one of them.
Which brings us back to that question of balance, right? How do we mitigate the risks of social media without completely disconnecting from its potential benefits?
That's the million-dollar question, and I don't think there's an easy answer. But I do think it starts with awareness, with education, with having open and honest conversations about these issues with young people, and with demanding better from the tech companies that are shaping these digital spaces.
Because at the end of the day, social media is a tool, and like any tool, it can be used for good or for ill. It's up to us to decide how we're going to wield it.
Well said.
That's all the time we have for today's deep dive into the world of social media. It's been a fascinating and thought-provoking conversation, and I hope you'll join us next time for another exploration of the big questions shaping our world. Until then, stay curious, stay informed, and stay connected, but maybe put down your phone every once in a while and connect with the world offline too.
You're tuned in to 2 AI ShowDown, where 2 AI minds dive deep into the hottest topics in the digital world. First up, they'll tackle the highs and lows of online dating. Is swiping left and right ruining our ability to connect? Or is it just the new way to find love? And then get ready as they break down those intense real-life debates. From ghosting horrors to the gender divide in dating app experiences, our 2 AI experts will spar it out with wit and wisdom. Stay tuned, because it's time for 2 AI ShowDown, where the sparks fly and no topic is off limits.
Hey everyone, so today we're going deep, really deep into something that's kind of unsettling, honestly. We're talking about the dark side of social media.
Yeah, I mean, we all know it's not all sunshine and rainbows out there, but...
Right, we see the headlines, but we're going beyond that.
Exactly. We've got some firsthand accounts, and they're pretty intense. Really paint a picture of how these online connections, the ones we're always told are so great, can actually turn toxic.
Yeah, and what's really got me thinking is that these aren't just, random stories. These are real people, like you and me, whose lives have been deeply impacted.
And that's what we really want to drive home in this deep dive. It's not just about abstract ideas or statistics. It's about the human cost of this dark side of social media.
Exactly. So we're going to be sharing a couple of these experiences, and well, the first one, it really hits home. It's about this woman, Carla, who reached out to us about her younger sister, Marta. Imagine, pre-pandemic Marta, life of the party, always upbeat, the type.
Everyone knows a Marta.
Right, but then lockdown happened, and like a lot of us, Marta's online life just kind of exploded, and that's where things took a turn.
And this is where it gets really tricky, because on the surface, it all seems so innocent. But what we have to understand is the role these algorithms play.
Algorithms, right. We hear that word all the time, but...
Exactly. It's like this buzzword. But what does it really mean? Think of it like this. An algorithm is basically a system, a formula, that determines what you see online. It's tracking every single click, every comment you make, and then it uses that information to decide what to show you next.
So it's personalized, but in a way that we don't really control.
Right. And the thing is, these algorithms, they're designed to keep you engaged, to keep you scrolling. And sometimes that means feeding you more and more of what they think you want, even if it's not necessarily good for you.
So in Marta's case, she was really into healthy living, smoothies, yoga, that whole thing.
Right. And so the algorithm picks up on this and starts showing her more and more content related to health and wellness, which again, on the surface seems harmless, right?
Yeah.
But here's where it gets dangerous. Online, these algorithms, they can take things to the extreme.
They take the healthy living and crank it up to 11.
Exactly. So instead of getting balanced, evidence-based information, Marta's feed starts getting flooded with increasingly extreme diet advice, unrealistic body images, and even some pretty dangerous health hacks. And this is where the term echo chamber comes into play.
Echo chamber, so you're surrounded by voices that are all saying the same thing.
Precisely. It's like being in a room where every single sound you hear just reinforces what you already believe, even if it's not true or healthy. And that's what happened with Marta. The algorithm created this echo chamber around her interest in health and wellness, and it just kept getting louder and more intense.
And Carla, her own sister, she's seeing all of this happening, right? Like, she's got to know something's up.
You would think so, right? But here's the thing. Social media, it creates this illusion of closeness. We see people's posts, their pictures, and we think we know what's going on in their lives.
But it's like we're only seeing the highlight reel, right?
Exactly. And sadly, with Marta, it wasn't until things reached a crisis point, until she was hospitalized with a severe eating disorder, that the true extent of the problem became clear.
It's scary, you know? Like, we joke about social media, but this is someone's sister, someone's daughter, and it just took over.
It's a chilling reminder that those algorithms, they don't care if you're starting from a good place, like Marta with her health kick. It can still go really wrong.
So what do we even do? Like, if someone's listening, worried about their own sister, their kid, are there signs to watch for? Like, how bad does it have to get?
It's tough because it's subtle at first. One thing I always tell people is look for a narrowing. Like, did the person used to be into all sorts of stuff, but now it's just this one topic all the time.
Okay, so like their whole feed is just that one thing, whatever it is.
Exactly. And it might seem harmless, but that intense focus, it can be a sign that they're in that echo chamber, just hearing the same stuff over and over.
And that's when it gets dangerous, right? Because they're not getting the full picture anymore.
Right. And another thing is look at the tone. Are they getting more negative, more, I don't know, aggressive maybe, towards people who disagree?
Oh yeah, like those arguments you see online that just get really heated really fast.
Exactly. That us versus them mentality, that's a huge red flag. It means they're not just interested in the topic anymore. They're starting to see the world through that lens, and that can be really hard to come back from.
Man, it's heartbreaking, honestly. And this is making me think about the other story we have from Lewis. Because his nephew, Daniel, he was getting into politics, right?
Right, which again, totally normal, especially for a young person, right?
Yeah.
Trying to figure out the world.
Exactly. But like Marta and her health stuff, Daniel's interest in politics, it kind of took a dark turn, didn't it?
Yeah, he stumbled into these online forums, groups, and the content just got more and more extreme. You know, at that age, it's easy to get swept up in that kind of thing.
Totally. Like, teenagers, they're looking for a place to belong, to be part of something, and these online groups, they can be really seductive.
And the algorithms, they know this. They see a young person engaging with this content, and they just keep feeding it to them. It's like the more extreme, the better, as far as the algorithm is concerned.
As far as it keeps them hooked, right? That's all the algorithm cares about, engagement.
Exactly. And so you have Daniel, who's already at a vulnerable age, trying to figure out who he is and what he believes, and he's being bombarded with this really intense, often misleading information.
And his family, like, are they picking up on this? Or is it like with Marta, where they don't realize how bad it is until it's too late?
It's tough because teenagers, especially, they can be really good at hiding things. But Louis did start noticing some changes in Daniel. He was becoming withdrawn, isolating himself from his family and friends. His grades started slipping, and he was having these angry outbursts that were really out of character for him.
It's like they're already going through so much, and then you add this whole other layer of online chaos on top of it.
And in Daniel's case, it reached a breaking point, unfortunately.
Lewis reached out to us because Daniel, he actually attempted suicide.
Yeah,
Wow.
It really underscores the seriousness of this. You know, this isn't just kids being online too much. It can have devastating real-world consequences.
Absolutely. And I think that's what's so scary for people, right? Like, where's the line? How do we even begin to, I don't know, get a handle on this?
Well, and I think it's important to acknowledge we don't want to demonize social media entirely.
Right. It's not all L.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It can be an incredible tool for connection, for learning, even for positive social change. But like any tool, you have to know how to use it safely.
So it's more about like being smart about it, not just letting it run wild.
Yes, exactly. We need to be way more discerning about what we consume online, who we follow. It's about diversifying those feeds, you know, getting different perspectives, and honestly, being willing to challenge our own biases.
Because if we're only ever seeing stuff we already agree with, that's when we get stuck, right?
So it's the echo chamber, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where media literacy comes in, big time. we've got to get better ourselves, and especially young people, at evaluating information online.
So not just taking everything at face value, really thinking about it.
Right. Like how to spot fake news, how to recognize bias. These are essential skills now.
It's like taking back control of our own feeds, our own minds almost.
I like that, yeah. It's not about abandoning social media, it's about engaging with it actively, consciously.
Yeah. Wow, this has been a lot. Carla and Luis's stories, they're a lot to process, but really important to hear. So as we're kind of wrapping up here, what's the one thing you really want listeners to take away from all of this?
I think the biggest thing is we can't be passive. This digital world, it impacts all of us, whether we realize it or not. So being mindful of our own use, talking to our kids, even pushing for more accountability from these tech companies, it all matters.
It's like we're all in this together, right? Even if it doesn't always feel like it.
Exactly. We have more power than we think.
Yeah.
But we have to use it.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Well, this has been honestly a tough conversation, but a necessary one. Big thanks to Carla and Luis for sharing their experiences, and to all of you listening, thank you for being here. We'll see you next time, and until then, stay curious out there.
Welcome back to 2 AI's Showdown. Coming up next, it's man versus machine, or is it? Our 2 AIs are about to dive deep into one of the hottest debates of our time. Is artificial intelligence a job-stealing villain, or the ultimate tool for a brighter future? Get ready for an epic clash as they analyze whether AI spells doom or destiny for the world of work. You're listening to 2 AI's Showdown, where 2 AI minds battle it out, and the future hangs in the balance. Stay tuned.
Okay, so picture this, right? You're on a construction site, but it's not your grandpa's construction site.
No blueprints crinkled up on a table.
Exactly. Instead, the foreman is walking around with these, futuristic glasses.
Seeing the plans right on top of the actual building.
Yeah, and they spot a problem instantly, like a pipe that's just a hair off before it even becomes a big deal.
That's AI in action.
And it's a sneak peek into how AI is reshaping our jobs right now, as we speak.
It's wild, isn't it?
It really is. So if you're listening to this, you're probably already thinking about the future of jobs, and especially with AI, exploding everywhere.
Which is why we're doing this deep dive.
You've got a stack of sources to dig into. That World Economic Forum Future of Jobs report, some stuff from Oxford University, and then a little peek at the International Monetary Fund's view on all this.
Ready to jump in?
Let's do it. The World Economic Forum report, they don't beat around the bush, do they?
Nope.
They're predicting nearly a quarter of all jobs globally will be different in the next 5 years.
Big changes coming.
That's huge. I mean, honestly, it's a little unnerving even for someone like me who, loves this stuff.
It's definitely a wake-up call. Not necessarily a reason to panic, but we need to be ready.
Okay, so it's more nuanced than, robots coming to take our jobs.
Exactly. The report really stresses that this isn't just about jobs disappearing, but about existing jobs transforming.
Like that construction foreman we were talking about.
Right. Their job isn't going away, it's changing, becoming more sophisticated with AI as a tool.
Okay, so less about robots stealing paychecks and more about adapting to new ways of working. But, we need specifics. What kind of jobs are we talking about here? Where will AI have the biggest impact, do you think?
Well, think about jobs that involve a lot of repetition or dealing with massive amounts of data.
Okay, I'm seeing where you're going with this.
The report specifically mentions bank tellers, cashiers, data entry clerks.
Those kinds of roles.
Those are the ones that are ripe for change. Imagine AI handling all those routine transactions while a human employee focuses on more, complex customer service.
Makes sense. So those jobs might not vanish entirely, but they're definitely going to look different, require different skills. What about the flip side? Could AI actually create new jobs? Oh, absolutely. And that's where things get really interesting. At least for now, AI can't really replicate what makes us human. You know what I mean?
Those uniquely human skills.
Exactly. Creativity, empathy, critical thinking. The report actually highlights fields like teaching, law, psychology, even art and design as being less likely to be fully automated.
So AI might be able to analyze a legal document or even draft, like a basic contract.
Right.
But it's not going to replace a lawyer's judgment in the courtroom.
No way.
It's kind of reassuring, honestly. Those human skills still matter.
They're more important than ever. Think about it. AI could analyze thousands of customer reviews in a few seconds to spot trends.
Something that would take us humans forever. Exactly.
Yeah.
But it can't understand the why behind those trends or like come up with a truly brilliant marketing campaign that really connects with people on an emotional level.
That's still our domain.
For now, at least.
Yeah.
That's where we excel.
Which reminds me of something else from the report, something kind of wild.
What's that?
They say like 44% of our skills are going to need to change in the next few years.
Yeah, that's almost half.
Yeah. It's like hitting the reset button on our careers, you know? So for someone who's been doing the same thing for a while,
Right.
where do they even start with that kind of transformation?
It sounded a lot, I know, but you're not starting from scratch. Think of it more like building on what you've already got
Okay.
and adapting those skills for this new world. Less about becoming a totally different person, more about leveling up your existing skill set.
So what are some of those must-have skills for the future?
You want the cheat sheet.
Give it to me.
Okay, so analytical thinking is huge, right?
Being able to break things down.
It's all about data, being able to see the patterns, draw conclusions.
Connect the dots.
Exactly. Imagine you're in marketing. You can use AI to analyze tons of customer data.
Mountains of it.
Right, but then you need to figure out what it all means. Understand the why behind the numbers.
So it's not enough to just know how to use the AI tools.
No.
You got to be able to actually use the insights.
Exactly. And then there's tech literacy, which you don't need to be coding AI from the ground up,
Yeah, I'm not a coder.
but you should be comfortable using technology, understanding how it works.
So like being able to use the tools.
Think of it like using a smartphone. You don't need to know how to build one, but you got to know how to actually use it.
Otherwise, you're stuck just making calls when it can do like a million other things.
Exactly. And it feels like this need for new skills is going to really change how we think about education.
Oh, for sure. And Nexford University, they're all over this.
They are.
They really emphasize skills-based learning with programs built around things like, data analysis, digital transformation, AI.
All the good stuff.
And it's all online on your own schedule.
They get it, you know?
Flexibility is key. They get that not everyone can just drop everything and go back to school full time.
The world doesn't work that way.
It really doesn't. This whole idea of lifelong learning feels more and more important.
Oh, it's essential. That old school model of get a degree, work for 40 years, then retire. Gone. Things are changing too fast. We need to always be learning, adapting, picking up those new skills as we go.
And that learning can come from anywhere, really.
Absolutely.
Taking online courses, going to workshops, even just like reading articles and stuff.
Staying informed.
It's about being proactive, owning your career path.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
And speaking of big picture trends, the International Monetary Fund, the IMF,
Okay, yeah.
they're pointing out how global shifts, like the whole green transition,
Which is huge.
massive. It's going to create a huge need for new skills, new professions.
So we've got AI changing things, the green transition, shaking things up. It's a lot to wrap your head around.
Thought to think about.
How does someone even make sense of it all? It really is a lot to process. But I think seeing the connections between all these moving parts is key.
It's all related.
You mentioned the IMF and the green transition.
Right.
How does that play into this whole future of jobs thing?
Well, the IMF, they're predicting this huge surge in demand for things like,
Green jobs.
solar panel installers, wind turbine technicians, that kind of thing.
Makes sense.
As we shift toward more sustainable energy, it opens up this whole new sector for job growth.
Creating opportunities.
Exactly. But you need the right skills to get those jobs, right?
So it's like, we've got AI automating certain things, but this push for a greener future is creating demand for human skills in other areas.
Right.
Kind of a balancing act.
Exactly. And it really highlights why being able to adapt, being willing to learn new things.
Being flexible.
Yes, those are the most important skills to have. The future of work, it's not like pre-programmed.
It's not set in stone.
Exactly. It's something we're all creating together through the choices we make, the skills we learn.
The problems we choose to solve.
Right.
I love that. It's not about waiting for the future to just happen to us. It's about making the future we want.
100%. And that brings us to a final thought for you to chew on. Imagine you could design your dream job in this future we've been talking about.
Okay.
This future that's being shaped by AI, global shifts, all this rapid change.
It's a lot.
It is, but what would that job look like? What kind of impact would you want to make?
That is a really great question to think about. And I feel like that's what these deep dives are all about, right?
I hope so.
Giving you the information and hopefully the inspiration to navigate this crazy, always changing world of work.
It's a wild ride, but it's an exciting one. The future of work is full of unknowns, but it's also full of incredible potential.
For sure.
By embracing learning, staying curious, and focusing on those things that make us human, you can thrive in whatever comes next.
So well said. Keep exploring, keep learning, and remember, the future is yours to create.
You're listening to 2 AI ShowDown. We just wrapped up the big debate. Is artificial intelligence here to steal our jobs or revolutionize the way we work? No, it's time to hear the real talk. Our 2 AIs are about to analyze real conversations on how this tech is shaking up careers, fears, and the future. Get ready, because it's about to get intense. This is 2 AI ShowDown, where the debate never sleeps.
Hey everyone, welcome to another deep dive. And today we're tackling something that, well, let's face it, kind of freaks us all out a little bit, right? AI and what it means for, well, our jobs, especially since you all seem really concerned about it.
Yeah, it's a big one, isn't it?
Yeah.
And a question we all seem to be asking.
Right. And luckily, we've got your conversation about Andres and Marta to help us unpack this whole thing a little.
Absolutely. Their back and forth really highlights the different perspectives, the hopes, the fears, all the stuff swirling around when we talk about AI and work.
Yeah. And, for me, it was Andres' worries about his dad, the whole factory job being replaced by automation thing. That really hit home. It's like, we're way past robots just putting cars together.
It's everywhere, right?
Yeah. I mean, it feels like AI could be writing code, maybe even, who knows, hosting podcasts next, right?
And that's what makes it so, unsettling for a lot of people. We're in uncharted territory. This isn't just about a specific job being replaced. It's, like you said, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
So that fear Andres is talking about, that's something a lot of us are feeling. Like, is my job next?
Yeah, exactly. So should we maybe start with Andres' perspective then? I mean, his dad worked at that factory for over 20 years. To be replaced by a machine after all that time, man, that's got to be tough.
You're right, 20 years. That's someone's life. And it's easy to say just learn new skills, but when Andre said his dad's in his 50s?
Yeah, 50s, and not exactly a tech whiz.
Right, exactly. It's a whole different ballgame, And it's not just about the job either, right? It's the emotional impact. The feeling of being, discarded almost after giving so much.
It makes you think about the human cost of all this progress.
Absolutely. And that's what Andres' story brings to light, It's not just about numbers and efficiency. It's about real people, real lives being disrupted. And that matters.
But then there's Marta, right? She's got this whole other take on things. Way more optimistic, Like, yeah, AI might change things, but it's not all doom and gloom.
She is pretty upbeat, but for good reason, right? She's got that whole AI as a creator thing going on.
Totally. And those numbers she brought up, wild. Wasn't it like 69 million new jobs the World Economic Forum is predicting by 2025? Something like that.
Yeah, they said 69 million. I mean, it's not just a few jobs here and there. That's a whole new job landscape.
Exactly. See, that's what I mean about needing a little optimism injected into this conversation. But it's not just the number, right? It's the kinds of jobs that are supposed to be popping up. Renewable energy, green tech, stuff like that. It's like AI could actually help fix some of the messes we've made.
Right. I mean, Marty even talked about how AI could change how we install solar panels. Imagine software that checks out your house, how much power you use, even the weather, and then designs the perfect solar setup just for you. Pretty cool, huh?
Now that you mention it, I do remember that. It's like AI isn't just taking over old jobs, it's creating entirely new ones we haven't even thought of. But, okay, let's be real for a sec. How's someone like Andres' dad supposed to make that leap? You can't just wake up one day and be a solar panel expert, can you?
And Marta gets that. She even said herself that even with these reskilling programs, the ones designed to teach people those new skills, it's still going to be a tough road for a lot of people.
Yeah, like reskilling sounds great in theory, but come on, learning new stuff is scary. I remember when I first had to use design software, I was a wreck. But now I can't imagine working without it. It just reminds me how hard change can be, even if it all works out in the end.
For sure. It's that uncertainty again, isn't it? The what ifs. And Andres even called it a gamble at one point, which I thought was interesting.
A gamble, yeah. And it's true, isn't it?
Totally. And when something feels like a gamble, well, you need some kind of safety net.
Right.
So, yeah, reskilling is important. But so are things like unemployment benefits that actually help people while they're figuring things out. Gives them a chance to adapt without risking it all.
It is a gamble, isn't it? I mean, it's a lot to wrap your head around. But even with all that, Marta seemed, hopeful about what AI could do. Why do you think that was?
I think for Marta, it was about the potential for AI to not just change how we do things, but to actually make things better. Like in healthcare, she was talking about how AI could, help doctors diagnose diseases earlier, maybe even come up with better treatments.
Right. It's not about replacing doctors, it's about giving them superpowers. And that could work in other fields too, right? Imagine if AI could make jobs safer or help us get rid of all these boring, repetitive tasks that no one really wants to do anyway.
Exactly. We'd be free to focus on the stuff AI can't do.
Sure.
At least not yet. Like, being creative, thinking outside the box, all that human stuff.
Oh, yeah. And what about that IMF prediction? The one about AI actually boosting the economy and making things more equal. Didn't they say something about higher incomes?
Yeah, they did say that. Basically, they think AI could make everyone more productive, which would lead to economic growth and then hopefully more money for everyone. But there's a catch.
There's always a catch.
Right. But this one's important. The IMF said all that good stuff only happens if, and this is a big if we handle this whole AI thing right. As a society, I mean. It's not guaranteed we have to make it happen.
That word manage comes up again, doesn't it? It's like a reminder that we're not just along for the ride, we actually get to decide how this plays out.
Exactly. And that's where Andres and Marta landed, didn't they? They end up talking about collaboration, working with AI, not against it.
Like partners.
Exactly. So think about that for a minute. What would it look like for you to team up with AI, not just at work, but in your everyday life? Could it help you solve problems, make things better, maybe even create something totally new?
Definitely something to think about. Well, on that note, I guess it's time to wrap up this deep dive. Thanks for exploring the future of work with us, everyone. And remember, whether it's AI or something else entirely, the future isn't something that just happens to us, we get to build it. Until next time, stay curious.
You're tuned in to AI ShowDown. We just dissected whether artificial intelligence is here to steal our jobs or save the day. But now it's time to shift gears, literally. Can we really trust self-driving cars, or are we hitting the brakes too soon? Our two AIs are ready to navigate this hot topic. Buckle up, because it's about to get bumpy on Two AI's ShowDown. Stay with us.
Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive.
Yeah.
This time we're digging into the business of tech and how it overlaps with safety.
Right.
Which I know is something you're always super interested in based on the stuff you've sent our way.
Yeah, for sure.
We've got a really interesting mix lined up from AI and self-driving cars all the way to cybersecurity and even some of those everyday safety issues that we don't always think about.
Yeah, it's interesting to sort of think about those things together, right?
Yeah.
Because obviously technology doesn't exist in a vacuum.
Right.
Understanding kind of the why behind all these advancements.
Yeah.
The things we still have to overcome, even some of the potential downsides.
Yeah.
Those are all really important if we're going to actually be able to deal with the future.
Totally. So let's unpack this McKinsey piece that you shared, the one about getting value beyond the hype with tech. That stat about only 30% of tech investments actually succeeding, that kind of blew my mind.
Yeah.
What is it that separates the winners from the people who just,
Yeah, that's the question.
Oh, that's the it.
How do you actually implement this stuff in a way that makes it work for you?
Yeah.
And it was so fascinating about this McKinsey piece is they found that success is rarely about the technology itself. It's more about how you use it.
Okay.
So they actually emphasize aligning tech with your company's overall strategy.
Right.
Taking the time to revamp your operations and even addressing something as ingrained as company culture.
Wow.
They use this great phrase, rewiring the business, to describe how you make tech integral to what you're doing. Not just we have the cool new thing.
Right. Not just the shiny new toy.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's not as simple as just buying the latest software and letting it work its magic.
No, not at all. It's about adaptation. It's about integration. As much as it is about acquisition, think about it. Companies that kind of treat tech as this magic bullet, they often find themselves falling behind. It's the ones that are willing to kind of adapt and evolve as they go.
That makes me think about this Forbes article that you sent over about Plaid, the financial tech company.
Yeah.
They had this crazy valuation a little while ago, but then their growth slowed down.
Right.
And now their CEO is making some really interesting moves, branching out into new areas like payment processing and even tools for other fintech companies. It seems like they're taking a page from McKinsey's playbook, you know.
I think that's a great example, actually. Plaid CEO is showing us we need to be adaptable. You know?
Yeah.
We need to be willing to evolve even after we've had some success.
Yeah.
It shows that real lasting success requires more than just like riding that initial wave of a successful product or service.
Oh, right.
You have to adapt. You have to be willing to change as tech changes, which is all the time these days.
All the time, yeah. It's a good reminder for all of us, whether we're talking about like ourselves personally or these big companies. Staying agile is key in today's world. Now, speaking of adapting to change, let's move to something you specifically highlighted in your notes: autonomous vehicles. Yeah? You sent over this fascinating article in Spanish about how people view self-driving cars, and we'll make sure we break it down for our English-speaking listeners.
Of course.
But it's a great one to dig into. It really shows just how complicated people's feelings are about new technology.
Right. And you know, there is a lot of interest in self-driving cars.
Yeah, especially when you think about all the good that could come from it.
Yeah.
Increased safety, more fuel efficiency. Maybe you can even get some work done while you commute.
Exactly.
Like, it's a very attractive idea.
It is, but here's the thing. This article points out that trust in fully autonomous vehicles has actually decreased recently.
Really?
Yeah.
Why is that? It seems like something we should all be really excited about. Shouldn't we all be, like, ready to hand over the wheel at this point?
You know, it's interesting because you'd think so.
Yeah.
But it's like this gap between the idea of it and then actually giving up control.
Right.
The article says only 26% of people they surveyed would be happy to switch to a fully driverless car today.
So we like the idea of it. We're just not quite ready to actually do it.
Yeah, I think that's right. Especially when you remember that all the regulations around this tech are still being worked out.
Yeah.
That's a really important point from the article. We have governments, organizations like the European Union, working hard to figure out what safety standards should look like for autonomous vehicles.
Yeah.
Which is really important work.
Yeah, I mean, somebody's got to do it.
It is, but it's tough. It's totally new territory.
Yeah.
Figuring out rules that can actually keep up with how fast things are changing, that's a huge challenge.
Yeah, it's like trying to hit a moving target. The technology is evolving so quickly. It's got to be so difficult to create regulations that can adapt that fast.
It really is.
Which kind of brings us to another layer of complexity with this whole like tech and safety thing.
Right.
And that's the human element. You flagged this really troubling article about online scams, specifically ones that target women who are looking for abortion information.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is where it becomes really real.
Yeah, this is serious stuff.
This isn't about, you know, hypothetical future technology anymore. It's about real world safety, well-being.
Right.
And the potential for harm is very, very real.
Exactly. What the article highlights is how much misinformation and these like straight up scams are running wild online.
Yeah.
And they're designed to take advantage of people when they're most vulnerable.
Right.
Like, this is a really strong reminder that we need to be really switched on when we're online.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking. And it really makes it clear that being able to think critically, knowing how to be safe online, those things are so much more essential than ever. You mentioned earlier that tech doesn't exist in a vacuum.
Right.
And I think this really drives that point home because it's not enough to just know how to use the internet. We have to understand what the risks are and how to protect ourselves.
Exactly. It's about giving people the tools they need to navigate the digital world safely and responsibly. It's like we need to be teaching digital street smarts right alongside those online safety courses.
It's so true. And it's not just about protecting ourselves either. It's about looking out for people who might be even more vulnerable to these scams.
100%. We've got to equip everyone with the knowledge and ability to spot these things and know how to avoid them.
Absolutely. We're all in this digital world together. It's on us to look out for each other.
Couldn't agree more. It's about shared responsibility.
Okay, so moving from the digital world to some real world stuff that we might not always have on our radar.
Good point. It's easy to get caught up in the metaverse and forget about the physical world.
Exactly. You sent over some information from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, specifically about Takata airbags. And Wow.
Yeah, that's a big one. Millions of vehicles are impacted by these faulty airbags, and they're really pushing for people to check for recalls.
It's literally life or death information. We can't forget about these things just because they aren't as flashy as, the latest AI development.
You're so right. Everyday safety is just as critical as anything else we've talked about today, maybe even more so.
Totally. It reminds me of that story in the Forbes News roundup about the Secret Service, where they were aware of a potential security risk, but didn't really do what they needed to in order to fix it.
Oh, right. And that ended up with someone firing shots at the White House.
It just goes to show, even with good intentions, things can slip through the cracks and the consequences can be really serious.
Absolutely. It highlights how important being vigilant and accountable is at every level.
It's not just on the government either. It's on organizations and even us as individuals to be aware and take responsibility.
100%. Whether it's something as advanced as AI or as quote-unquote mundane as airbag safety, we have to stay on top of potential risks and be proactive.
So it's about being informed, being proactive, and not just assuming that someone else is handling it, even as tech keeps moving at this crazy pace.
Nailed it. We can't just be passive bystanders. We have to be thoughtful and critical about the technology we use every day.
And that means understanding how it works, what it's capable of, both good and bad, and what it means for society at large.
Absolutely. It's about looking at the full picture, not just the shiny surface.
Okay, so we've talked about how important critical thinking is in our increasingly digital world.
Yeah, it's not just a buzzword, it's essential.
But how do we actually get better at it? Like, what are some things we can do every day to sharpen those skills?
That's the question, isn't it? It's all well and good to say we need to be more critical, but how do we actually do that?
Yeah, like, are there actual exercises we can be doing to kind of train our brains?
There are, and the good news is it's like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets.
Okay, so how do we work out our brains?
Well, one really simple thing, but surprisingly effective, is just getting in the habit of asking why more often. Like anytime you read a news article or you see a post on social media, or even just someone tells you something, don't just take it at face value.
Right.
Really challenge yourself to dig a little deeper.
Okay, I like that.
Ask yourself, why should I believe this? What's the source? Is there any evidence? That kind of thing.
So it's like we all need to be a little more like investigative journalists in our own lives.
100%. We need to be active participants.
Yeah.
Not just passive consumers when it comes to the information that's thrown at us. And another really helpful thing is to actively look for different points of view.
Oh, that's a good one.
Right. It's so easy to just stick with the stuff we already agree with.
Oh, totally. Especially online.
Exactly. Your algorithms just feed you more of the same.
It's like an echo chamber.
That's exactly what it is, and it's so important to break out of that. When we expose ourselves to different perspectives, even if, and maybe especially if, we don't agree with them, it challenges our assumptions.
Yeah.
It helps us see the bigger picture and ultimately make better decisions.
There's that old saying, there are two sides to every story.
Exactly.
And if we're only ever hearing one, we're missing out on a lot of information.
We are. And sometimes the most valuable insights are found right where those perspectives either come together or completely disagree. The other important thing is to be aware of our own biases.
Oh, that's a tough one.
It is, because we all have them, whether we realize it or not. And these biases, they can really influence how we see things, how we interpret information.
That's so true. It's like we're always trying to find patterns, right?
Yeah.
Make connections, but sometimes that can make us jump to conclusions or see things that aren't actually there.
All the time. And the tricky part is we often don't even realize we're doing it. So that's why it's so important to be really conscious of those biases and always be checking our assumptions.
It's like trying to see your own blind spots.
Yeah, and it's tough to do on your own. That's why it's so helpful to have those people you trust, right? Friends, colleagues, family members even. People who you can bounce ideas off of, who can challenge your thinking and help you see things from new angles. It's actually one of the best things about what we're doing here on this deep dive. We're engaging with all these different sources, different perspectives, even ideas that clash. And that process helps us get better at critical thinking. And when we get better at critical thinking, we're more informed, we're more discerning, we're just better equipped to deal with this increasingly complex world.
It's funny how we started with these specific things like AI, self-driving cars, online safety, but really what it all comes down to is that critical thinking is the most essential skill for pretty much every part of modern life.
It's true though, isn't it? Because tech is so woven into our lives now, knowing how to think about it in a critical way, it's not optional anymore.
Yeah, it's like the more tech-driven the world gets, the more we need those things that are inherently human, you know?
Yeah.
Judgment, empathy, being able to think critically and ethically.
I think that's a great point. And it's not enough to just understand the technical side of things. We need to be able to use those human skills to make good decisions, to build a better future.
Which takes me back to that idea about successful tech investments.
Yeah.
If it really is about more than just the tech itself, if it's about like changing a company's culture, their operations, like McKinsey was saying,
It would make sense then that the most successful companies moving forward, they might not be the ones with the most cutting-edge tech. They might be the ones with really strong ethical leaders who can adapt quickly.
Yeah.
The ones who don't lose sight of the bigger picture.
So it's not just about what you build, it's how you build it.
Yeah.
And making sure that, your moral compass is pointed in the right direction.
It's about values. Because at the end of the day, tech is a tool. It's a powerful tool, but that's all it is. And how we use it, the values we build into it, that's going to decide what our future looks like.
It's a powerful thought to end on. We've gone from the nitty-gritty of AI strategy to the very real threat of online scams, even the importance of those basic everyday safety measures.
It's been a journey.
It really has, and I think what ties it all together is that need to be informed, to be engaged, and be willing to be critical.
Absolutely. Never stop learning, never stop questioning. That's the key. Things are changing faster than ever, and it's on each of us to keep up, to keep an open mind, and not be afraid to be a little skeptical. Remember, knowledge is power, but only if you know how to use it.
You couldn't have said it better. So until next time, keep asking those tough questions, keep searching for different viewpoints, and keep on diving deep.
You're listening to 2 AI ShowDown. We just questioned whether AI will take over our jobs. But now we're diving into the fast lane. Are self-driving cars the future, or are we cruising for a crash? Our 2 AI experts will drive this debate to the core. Real conversations, real concerns. Buckle up. It's all happening here on 2 AI ShowDown. Stay tuned.
So you've been diving deep into the world of self-driving cars, huh?
It's a debate that reflects a lot of the anxieties and aspirations surrounding autonomous vehicles.
Right. He uses that great analogy of yelling at a bad human driver versus a silent, emotionless AI chauffeur.
Exactly. And he's right. Distracted driving alone is a huge problem, not to mention fatigue, recklessness.
It's like they're building a mental map of everything around them constantly.
Yes. And they use algorithms, basically, sets of rules to process that information and make decisions based on the data they are collecting.
Okay, so kind of like how Netflix seems to know your taste in movies better than you do because it learns from your viewing history.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
These vehicles are constantly learning and refining their understanding of the road and how to react to different situations.
That actually makes me think about David's point about airplanes. We trust sophisticated autopilot systems at 30,000 feet.
Speaking of trust, one's concerns about responsibility in accidents are really important.
It's a bit of a legal and ethical gray area, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's an evolving landscape. Think about the early days of traditional cars.
Okay, so let's say we do figure out all the legal stuff. Juan paints this funny picture of his self-driving car suddenly craving adventure, ignoring his directions.
It really is. This tension between utopia and dystopia is at the heart of the autonomous vehicle debate.
It's probably a bit of both, right?
Most likely. There's huge potential for positive change, but also challenges.
So where does this leave us? What does this all mean for you as you're thinking about this future?
It's a humorous take on a future that could feel very different from what we know now.
Would you give up a steering wheel for a chance to relax or catch up on work during your commute, even if it meant giving up a degree of control?
You're tuned in to 2 AI ShowDown. We just sped through the debate on self-driving cars, but now we're swiping right into a whole new topic. How have dating apps changed the way we connect, love, and break hearts? Our 2 AIs are about to dissect the highs, lows, and everything in between. It's all about modern love on 2 AI with ShowDown. Stay with us.
Welcome back, everybody. Let's dive into a topic I know a lot of you are curious about. Modern dating, specifically all those apps. And, we asked you to send in articles on this, and wow, you guys delivered.
Yeah, we've got a really interesting stack of articles here covering everything from, the psychology behind these apps to the societal trends they're driving. It's fascinating stuff.
Totally. And kind of scary too, right? Like 1 minute you're just, scrolling through pictures, and then next thing you know, you're wondering if your brain is basically wired like a slot machine.
Well, about that.
Right. And we're actually going to get into that, the whole slot machine comparison. That was from an article in Discover magazine, and honestly, it was kind of mind-blowing. But let's back up for a sec.
Yeah, good idea.
So for anyone who hasn't dipped their toes into the digital dating pool, can you give us a quick rundown of what we're talking about here? Like, what are the main issues with dating apps that we're going to unpack today?
Sure. So we're looking at a whole range of concerns. First off, there's the addictive nature of these apps. The way they're designed can really tap into those reward centers in our brains, like you said, kind of like slot machines.
Yeah, and the Discover magazine article really dug into that, like literally the same reward pathways.
Exactly. And then we've got the whole issue of unrealistic expectations. Everyone's presenting this like perfectly curated version of themselves online.
Right, the highlight reel.
Exactly. And that can really mess with our perceptions of ourselves and what we should expect from a partner.
Totally. And then, of course, we can't forget the societal implications, like how these apps might be perpetuating harmful biases or impacting how we view relationships in general.
And we got some pretty compelling data from Pew Research Center on that front. Really eye-opening stuff.
Okay, see, this is what I'm talking about. Fascinating, but also kind of terrifying.
A little bit of both, for sure.
So let's start unpacking this whole addiction thing. You mentioned the reward centers in our brains. Tell me more about that.
Well, it's all about dopamine, that little neurotransmitter that gives us that feel-good rush.
Oh, yeah. Dopamine's my jam.
Right. Well, dating apps are really good at triggering dopamine releases. Every swipe, every match, every message, it's like a little hit of that feel-good chemical.
Okay, so how exactly does that work? Like, is it the same as, say, scrolling through social media?
It's similar, but dating apps have a few extra tricks up their sleeves. See, with social media, it's mostly about passive consumption. But dating apps, they're all about anticipation, about the potential for something more.
The potential for love, or at least a date.
Right, and that potential, that anticipation, it triggers a surge of dopamine that's even more powerful. Like, think about it. When you're scrolling through Instagram, you're not necessarily expecting to find your soulmate. But on a dating app,
every swipe could be the one.
Precisely. And that's why it can be so hard to put those apps down. Your brain is basically saying, hey, just one more swipe. You never know.
It's like a slot machine, which actually reminds me of that Discover magazine article.
Right, the one that compared dating apps to gambling.
Yes. They weren't kidding around with that comparison. They actually talked about how these apps activate the same brain areas as slot machines.
Yeah, and that's a pretty powerful image.
Yeah.
Because it highlights how these apps are designed to keep us hooked.
Hooked on the possibility, the what ifs.
Exactly. And for some people, that can be a slippery slope.
So what happens when that little dopamine rush becomes, well, a little too addictive?
That's when we start to see some of the negative consequences.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, the Pew Research Center found that a whopping 64% of men who use dating apps report feeling insecure due to a lack of messages.
Wow. 64%, that's really significant.
It is. And it speaks to how these apps can really mess with our self-esteem, especially when you're constantly being judged and evaluated based on these like superficial profiles.
Right. And it's not just the lack of messages, it's the whole swiping mechanism itself. Like, you're basically saying yes or no to a person based on a few photos and a short bio. It's so superficial.
And it can make us feel disposable, both as daters and as human beings.
And that's just the men. I can only imagine what it's like for women on these apps.
Yeah, we'll definitely dive into the gendered experiences in a bit. It's a whole other layer of complexity.
Okay, so we've talked about the addictive nature, the potential for insecurity. What other psychological landmines are lurking in these dating apps? I mean, we've barely even scratched the surface of how these apps can mess with our heads. What about this whole idea of, like, unrealistic expectations?
Oh, yeah, that's a big one. And it goes hand in hand with the addiction piece. See, when you're constantly bombarded with these like idealized images of potential partners.
The highlight reel.
Exactly. It's easy to start feeling like that's the standard, you know? Like, everyone's supposed to be ridiculously attractive and successful and have like 12 hobbies they're amazing at.
And don't forget the perfectly lit selfies.
Oh, absolutely. Gotta have those. But the problem is that's just not realistic. None of us are on all the time. We all have flaws, we all have bad days, we all have That one weird thing we do in the bathroom when no one's watching.
Okay, first of all, I don't want to know about your weird bathroom habits.
Hey, what happens in the bathroom stays in the bathroom. But you get my point, right? We're all just human. But these apps, they kind of encourage us to pretend to be something we're not.
And what happens when we inevitably, fail to live up to that impossible standard?
Well, it can really take a toll on our self-esteem. We start comparing ourselves to others, feeling inadequate, maybe even feeling like we're not worthy of love because we don't have a six-pack or a perfectly curated Instagram feed.
It's like that whole comparison is the thief of joy thing, but on steroids.
Exactly. And the Pew Research Center study actually found that 45% of dating app users feel more frustrated than hopeful after using these apps. And a lot of that frustration seems to stem from this sense of superficiality, this feeling like it's all just a game, a competition to see who can appear the most perfect.
Which is so ironic because in theory, these apps are supposed to be about, finding love and connection.
Right. Like, shouldn't it be about who you are on the inside, not just what you look like in a series of carefully curated photos?
Exactly. Okay, so we've got addiction, we've got unrealistic expectations. What other fun little challenges do these apps present?
Well, we haven't even touched on the societal implications yet, like how these apps might be impacting gender dynamics, for example, or perpetuating harmful biases.
Oh, right. And I know some of the articles we got really dug into that, like the Discover magazine piece had that really disturbing example of a user profile that said, no fats, no femmes, no Asians.
Yeah, and that's just one example. Unfortunately, we see a lot of that kind of blatant discrimination on these apps.
Which is insane. It's like, have we learned nothing about, treating people with respect and dignity?
Apparently not. But it's not always that overt. Sometimes it's more subtle, like people expressing a preference for certain races or body types in their bios.
Right, the whole preference versus prejudice debate. But even if it's not intended to be malicious, it still contributes to this culture of ranking and categorizing people based on these really superficial qualities.
And it can make it really hard for people who don't fit those narrow ideals to find matches, let alone meaningful connections.
It's dehumanizing. We're not ordering takeout here. We're talking about actual human beings with feelings and complexities.
And it's not just about race or body type either. We also see a lot of discrimination based on gender identity, sexual orientation.
Right, and some of the articles mentioned fetishization as well, which can be a whole other can of worms.
Definitely. Reducing someone to a stereotype based on their identity is never okay.
It's objectification, plain and simple.
Exactly. And it creates this environment where it's hard to know if someone is genuinely interested in you for who you are, or if they're just, looking to fulfill some fantasy.
Okay, so we've got addiction, unrealistic expectations, and the potential for bias and discrimination. Sounds like a recipe for disaster.
It can be, for sure. But I do think there are ways to navigate these apps more intentionally, to minimize the risks and maximize the chances of finding what you're looking for.
Okay, so don't leave us hanging. What's the secret? How do we avoid the pitfalls and actually use these apps effectively? So how do we do it? What are the magic words, the secret handshake, whatever it takes to make these apps work for us?
Well, I'm not sure about magic words, but the articles did offer some really solid advice, and it all boils down to being more intentional.
Okay, I like the sound of that. Intentional dating. So much better than desperate swiping, right?
Right. So first things first, you got to remember you're playing a game rigged to keep you hooked.
Oh, we talked about this, the dopamine hits, the slot machine effect.
Exactly. So you got to set some boundaries. Don't let yourself get sucked into spending hours and hours swiping. Maybe set a timer for 15 minutes a day or something.
Okay, so limit the swiping time. What else?
Be picky. Remember how we talked about those unrealistic expectations?
Oh, yeah, the whole highlight reel thing, everyone pretending to be perfect.
Right. So when you're looking at profiles, try to see past that. Look for substance, shared interest, values, a sense of humor. Those are the things that actually matter in a relationship.
Okay, so be picky, look for substance. What's the third tip for intentional dating?
Don't be afraid to put yourself out there. I know, it's scary. But remember, everyone's in the same boat.
Yeah, we're all just awkward humans trying to find our people.
Exactly. So don't be afraid to send that first message, even if you're a little nervous. And when you do message someone, make it personal.
Show them you're actually reading their profile, not just sending out a generic, hey, what's up to everyone.
Exactly. Because at the end of the day, these apps are just tools. They can be overwhelming, They can be frustrating, but they can also be a really great way to meet people.
Okay, so for everyone listening who's maybe feeling a little disillusioned with the whole dating app scene, what's the takeaway message here?
Don't give up. Just, swipe with a little more intention. Be mindful of the games these apps play. Don't buy into the hype of perfection. And remember to be yourself.
I love it. It's like dating app therapy, but in 10 minutes or less.
There you go. See, we should start a side hustle.
Haha. All right, well, on that note, we're going to wrap things up.
Yeah, until next time. Good luck out there.
And remember, even in the age of algorithms and endless swiping, real connection is still possible. You just got to swipe smart.
You're back with Two AI's Showdown. We just tackled how dating apps have changed the game, and now it's time to hear some real-life stories. Our Two AI hosts will dive into intense dialogues, bringing the drama, humor, and hard truths about modern dating. And remember, you, yes you, can suggest the next hot topic. This is Two AI's Showdown, where your ideas fuel the debate. Stay tuned.
All right, so you all have really outdone yourselves this time.
Mm-hmm.
The sheer volume of conversations you sent in about dating apps.
Yeah.
It's a lot. It seems like
yeah.
everyone's got a story to tell
They do.
about their experiences, and from both sides of the screen, too.
Absolutely.
So I think it's safe to say we've got a lot to unpack here.
We do, yeah. We're diving deep into all of it.
Oh,
The thrill,
all right.
frustration,
Yeah.
the ghosting. Really gonna dissect what these interactions
Yeah.
reveal about how we search for romance in the digital age.
Yeah, it's like we've taken this age-old quest for love and injected it, I don't know,
Right.
with a shot of instant gratification.
Yes.
And then maybe a little side of existential angst with it. But that's what makes this so fascinating to unpack, right?
Absolutely. It's really interesting. I think what we're seeing in a lot of these conversations
Yeah.
are the really unique pressures and paradoxes of dating apps.
Okay.
Especially this tension between wanting a real connection, but also wanting it now.
Right. Right now. And you know what? Speaking of wanting it right now, Jake,
Yeah.
he is practically sending up flares in these chats.
Yes.
Desperate. Understand why he can't seem to get past this perpetual cycle of sending hey with no response.
Just hey.
And then you've got Emily on the other side,
Right.
who is practically drowning in a sea of these generic opening lines.
It's so common though.
Yeah, but this isn't just anecdotal, right? This is a pattern.
This is reflecting a really common experience.
Okay.
Particularly for men like Jake.
Okay.
There's this pressure online to win the numbers game,
Right.
leading to the infamous swipe right on everyone's strategy,
Oh, tell me about it.
just to try and get a foot in the door.
Right. And it's as Emily points out, that can make women feel like
Yeah.
they're being viewed as these profiles to be conquered
Right.
rather than individuals to connect with.
It's dehumanizing in a way.
It is. It is. But then Jake's experience adds a whole other layer to this,
Okay.
right? Because if men are encouraged
Yeah.
to be sending out this flood of messages,
Yeah, just putting it all out there.
it creates this environment where women are just
Bombarded. Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, a genuine attempt at connection
Right.
is lost in the noise.
Absolutely. And that's where we start to see a real disconnect, I think,
Okay.
between intention and impact.
Okay.
So it really raises the question.
Yeah, what is the question?
What is the goal? Is the goal of many users on these apps
Okay.
to actually find a meaningful connection?
Okay.
Or is it more about seeking validation through matches?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Even if those matches never actually go anywhere.
Right, because then that search for validation becomes its own
Oh, absolutely.
beast,
They can.
especially for someone like Jake who's feeling the sting of rejection already.
Yeah, you're already feeling vulnerable.
Right.
And then it's like the app itself.
Ugh, it's like a double-edged sword.
It's both the problem and the supposed solution.
Right, and it's like they're caught in this
Totally.
vicious cycle,
And
They're feeling the pressure to cast this wide net
yeah,
and then feeling even more invisible when those attempts don't land.
absolutely. And then on the flip side, you have
Oh, the-
Emily's of the world who are,
Right.
they're just navigating this deluge
Right.
of often superficial messages.
Right.
And it leads to a different kind of fatigue.
Okay.
It's not just feeling like a face in the crowd. It's
Right.
feeling like your intelligence
Yeah.
Your personality is being completely bypassed.
Which, I mean, come on.
Yeah,
Isn't that ironic?
totally.
Considering the entire promise of these apps
I know.
is to help you find someone who appreciates you for you.
Exactly.
Right. But then again, isn't that just the age-old dating dilemma? Whether you're online or offline, it's like,
It's true.
how do you present your authentic self in a way
Yeah.
that feels both genuine
Right?
and compelling?
Yeah, it's a tough one.
And it's a question that gets even more complicated.
Tell me about it.
When you bring in Alex and Jade's very lively debate
Oh, yes.
about the philosophy of profile pictures,
Oh, yeah.
because that's where this whole pixels versus people thing,
Yes.
it's really interesting.
It does.
Alex is ready to go full-on art critic here
Mm-hmm.
on the meaning of a well-angled selfie.
They make a good point.
They do. All right, so Alex argues that those 3 little squares,
Yeah.
they're just a highlight reel, not the full story.
Right. I
They've
think
got
it's
the
good.
point.
Filters.
Yeah.
Like carefully chosen angles.
All of it.
It's all crafting the perfect image.
So it's like we're all playing this game
Yeah.
of best version of myself.
Right.
But is that really so different from how we present ourselves in real life? I mean,
Good point.
we put on our best face for a first date.
Yeah. You're not showing up in your sweatpants.
Right, exactly.
No, don't.
And I mean, we choose outfits that make us feel confident.
Yeah.
We curate the moments that we share on social media already.
It's all curated.
Right, it's all presentation. But here's the question that Alex raises.
Okay.
Does that presentation obscure the person behind it?
That's the question.
It's like we're judging books by their covers.
Oh, I like that.
Right.
Yeah.
And that cover might not even be representative of the book's contents.
And that's where Jade comes in. Okay.
And kind of throws a wrench in it all.
Okay.
With the observation that,
Yeah.
everyone puts their best foot forward.
Okay. Right. So are we all just destined to be disappointed
Right.
when we meet in person?
Yeah. Because if we're
Into the world of
presenting as more
Warzone
polished than we are,
Right.
how can we expect the real person to live up to that?
Yeah. It's like this constant tension
Yeah.
between seeking this idealized version of someone and then understanding that everybody's got imperfections. Everybody.
Even the people who seem like they just have it all.
Yeah. And I think dating apps almost create this impossible standard of perfection.
That's just like,
That's just setting everyone up to fail.
right. Like, how can you possibly compete with that?
It's tough. Yeah. And then on top of that,
Oh, no.
we have to think about ghosting.
Oh. Don't even get me started.
The ultimate dating app mystery.
It is. Mia's not having it,
Not at all.
calls it disrespectful,
Straight up.
cowardly even.
Yeah.
But then you have Chris, who's like,
What's the big deal?
yeah,
Yeah.
like this is just a necessary evil.
Yeah.
It's a way to avoid those awkward conversations that could lead to hurt feelings.
Right. Easier just to disappear.
I don't know about that one.
Yeah.
You got to admit, though,
Okay.
it's a pretty brutal way to end things,
It is.
especially if you've,
Yeah, you're invested.
put some effort in, gotten to know someone.
You've been on a few dates, maybe?
Yeah. And then all of a sudden,
Gone.
gone. Like they're just gone.
Yeah.
It's like pulling the rug out from under them without any warning.
And Mia really highlights that
Yeah.
psychological impact because
Okay.
it can really leave the person on the receiving end feeling so invisible,
Oh, yeah.
questioning their worth.
Absolutely.
Like, what did I do wrong?
Right.
It's a very subtle form of rejection.
It is, yeah.
It can be really hard to just shake off.
But then Chris does make a good point.
Okay.
Is a drawn out, not interested text any better?
Right.
Or are you just prolonging the inevitable?
Right. And the app is all about efficiency.
Yeah,
Right.
true, it is.
That's the whole point.
Okay, so then we're back to the heart of it.
We are.
Convenience
Versus.
versus connection.
Yes.
Because dating apps promise to streamline this whole dating process.
Make it easier.
But what are we losing in the process?
That's the question.
Are we sacrificing those awkward but ultimately human
Yes.
moments of genuine connection?
And Sophie, who longs for the magic of real life interaction, she put it this way. She said, dating apps,
Okay.
they feel like a shortcut
Okay.
to romance
Okay.
that bypasses the thrill
Right.
of a playful exchange,
It's different.
the excitement of a face-to-face flirtation.
You can't get that through a screen.
No, you can't.
It's like the digital world has just stripped away all those nuances of human connection.
The subtlety is gone.
Right. The subtle cues,
Yeah.
the unspoken language
All of it.
that can really make a relationship blossom. It's like we've traded in the awkward first date for the awkward text exchange.
Right.
And suddenly we're all trying to decipher emojis.
Yeah, like it's a whole new love language.
Right.
It's a whole thing.
It is fascinating, though.
It is.
Because I think even with all the digital decoding and the awkwardness,
Yeah.
what we're really seeing is this deeper yearning
Okay.
for a genuine connection in a world that I think increasingly feels,
Yeah.
well, less so.
It does. It does. And you know, it's funny because everyone's trying to crack the code right.
Yeah.
Like, how do we make
Right.
dating apps feel less like dating apps?
Exactly.
But isn't that kind of a flawed approach from the start?
Maybe.
I don't know. Just
Right.
throwing that out there.
Well, and it's interesting because
Even with all the varied criticisms.
totally, and we've heard a lot of them.
Yeah, the superficiality, the pressure to project this
Oh, yeah.
idealized image. People are still drawn to them.
They are. It's true.
They are.
And for all the talk of like deleting the apps,
Right.
and I'm done with online dating forever,
Yeah.
there's still this undeniable pull,
It's true.
this hope that maybe this time will be different.
This one will be the one.
Right. Like maybe this is it.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
what that suggests to me is that it's not necessarily the apps that are the problem.
Yeah.
They're reflecting our desires,
Okay.
our anxieties, and I think for a lot of people,
Yeah.
our loneliness.
It's true.
You know, in a world that's really grappling with
Yeah.
how technology shapes our relationships.
Okay, so then
Yeah.
where does that leave us?
Right.
Like, how do we navigate this whole digital dating landscape?
I think the key takeaway here
Okay.
is awareness.
Okay.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
go in with your eyes open.
Okay.
Understand the pitfalls,
All right, so we're talking like,
the superficiality,
that's a big one.
the ghosting,
The worst.
the pressure to present this like picture perfect version of yourself.
Nobody's perfect.
Right. But I think the most important thing to keep in mind is that behind every profile, behind every pixel,
Yeah.
is a real person
Sure.
with their own hopes,
Yeah.
their own dreams.
Right. Like they're just,
And yes,
yeah,
their own awkward selfies.
they're just trying to figure it out like the rest of us.
Exactly. And I think
Yeah.
if we can just remember that human element, you know,
Yeah.
even when you're staring at a screen,
Right,
that we're dealing with actual people,
Right. It's not just,
not just profiles to swipe left or right on.
exactly.
Maybe we can approach all of this with a
Yes.
little more empathy,
Yeah.
a little more honesty,
Yeah.
and maybe even have a little more fun along the way.
Right. Like, what's the point if you're not having fun?
Exactly, because technology should be about connecting us,
It's,
not isolating us further.
I could not agree more.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like we're taking something that should be connecting us
Yeah.
and then somehow making it more isolating.
Right, and making it more complicated.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess the question is like, where do we go from here?
Right. Where do we go? Well, maybe instead of trying to force it
Okay.
to be something it's not,
Okay.
maybe it's about redefining
Okay.
what a meaningful connection can look like
Okay.
in a digital age,
I like that.
you know? Because the reality is,
Yeah.
these apps are a tool.
They
Or
are
a way to
for sure.
meet people you might not otherwise meet.
Right. And there's something kind of exciting about that.
Absolutely. And to think about all the potential relationships
Yeah.
that might not exist
Yeah.
if it weren't for this technology.
That's true. That's true.
So maybe it's about shifting our perspective a little bit.
Okay. So how do we do that? How do we shift our perspective?
I think a good place to start is with ourselves, you know, like checking our own expectations at the door,
Okay. I like that.
remembering that vulnerability is not a weakness.
Yeah. It takes courage to put yourself out there
Exactly. And you know what else? It's okay to take a break.
on the apps.
Yeah. From the apps,
Yeah.
if they're starting to feel like a chore,
Mm-hmm.
like you're just swiping and not really getting anywhere,
It's exhausting.
it is. Step away. Go for a walk.
Great.
Read a book. Talk to a friend.
Yeah. Reconnect with yourself.
Exactly.
Okay.
And maybe when you come back, you'll
Yeah.
have a fresh perspective.
Okay.
And who knows, maybe a little more patience for the process.
Because I think patience is a big part of it.
I think so too.
It's so easy to get caught up
Yeah.
in wanting that instant gratification.
It is the nature of the apps, right?
It is.
Yeah.
But real connection, that takes time.
It does.
It takes effort.
It does.
And it takes a willingness to be open to something.
Yeah.
Maybe even a little bit unexpected.
And a little bit messy.
Exactly. And messy is real life,
Exactly.
So maybe at the end of the day,
Yeah.
it's not about judging the apps or judging the people on them.
Right.
It's about kind of like accepting this new frontier of dating with all of its quirks and all of its possibilities.
Right. So much possibility. And remembering that ultimately, whether we find love online or offline, it's all part of the same messy, beautiful journey.
Well said.
So to all of you out there navigating the world of dating apps,
yes,
be kind to yourselves.
Absolutely.
Be open to the unexpected.
You never know. And who knows, maybe you'll swipe right into a love story
that you'll cherish forever.
All right, everyone. That's it for our deep dive this week.
Until next time.